She hadn't felt truly needed in months until that tiny cry in the cold changed everything. Emma stood alone on her porch, the wind biting through her coat as snowflakes clung to her laps. 8 months pregnant, newly separated, and sleeping in her childhood bedroom after a messy move back home, she often felt like a guest in her own life. Her days were slow, filled with doctor's appointments and silence, broken only by the hum of the old refrigerator and her mother's careful, distant kindness. That night, she went outside just to breathe air, space, something. Then she heard it. A faint, raw meow, dragging through the cold like it was fighting to stay alive. It wasn't a sound that belonged in this neighborhood, not with the snow piled high and the temperature dropping fast. Her heart jumped, maternal instinct pulsing hard through her ribs. And as she stepped off the porch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, she saw two tiny eyes glowing from under the shed. Emma's first thought wasn't noble, it was panic. What if it was rabid? What if she hurt herself trying to help? But something about that tiny, shaking figure under the wood beams, half covered in frost, erased the fear. It wasn't just a cat, it was something lost, alone, and barely hanging on just like her. She crouched slowly, careful not to slip, her breath forming clouds in the air as she reached out. The cat didn't run. It couldn't. Its body was curled tight, unmoving except for the rapid rise and fall of its chest. Emma felt something shift inside her, some ache that had sat too long without words. She didn't speak, she just moved, inch by inch, until her fingers touched the cat's fur. It was ice, and it didn't flinch. Inside the house, her mother stared wide-eyed as Emma pushed through the door holding the frozen creature to her chest. "Emma, you're going to make yourself sick," she whispered, already reaching for towels. But Emma ignored her. She knelt by the old heater, setting the bundle down with the same tenderness she'd imagined for her own child. The cat was tiny, skeletal, with a gash near its hind leg and ice stuck to its whiskers. It didn't cry anymore. It just stared. Emma's hands trembled not from the cold, but from something deeper. This wasn't supposed to be her problem. She had enough problems. But watching the cat lying motionless beside the heater, Emma felt something she hadn't in weeks: focus. She knew what to do, and that clarity was almost as warming as the heat now pulsing from the vent. She grabbed her phone, looked up emergency vet instructions, and gently dabbed the cat's fur with a warm cloth. "Hang in there," she whispered, though it felt like she was speaking to herself. Outside, the wind howled louder. Inside, Emma and the cat were quiet to fragile lives bound by cold and timing. The night stretched long, and Emma didn't sleep. She sat beside the cat, checking its breathing, keeping a heating pad under its frail frame, sipping tea she didn't taste. Her mother hovered, concerned but silent, respecting the moment in a way only mothers understand. Hours passed. The cat didn't move, but its breathing steadied, and its tiny body stopped shaking. At 4 a.m., Emma finally closed her eyes. She felt the baby kick as she drifted off. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe not. When Emma woke, the cat was sitting up. Not fully but enough to lift its head and blink slowly, as if to say, "I'm still here." Emma gasped, covering her mouth, hairs rushing forward before she could stop them. For weeks, she'd moved through each day like she was underwater, slow, disconnected, just waiting for something to pull her back to the surface. This cat, weak and broken, had clawed its way into her frozen world and given her a reason to care again. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected any of it. Later that morning, Emma made a bed for the cat inside an old laundry basket, lining it with baby blankets she hadn't used yet. The irony didn't escape her. She hadn't even named her own daughter yet. Everything still felt unreal: her failed marriage, the coming baby, the future. But now, as the cat curled deeper into the soft fabric, its chest rising and falling in tiny, steady waves, Emma felt the edge of something new. Not certainty, not hope, exactly, but something. She called the vet, who told her to bring the cat in as soon as she could. Emma bundled herself up again, this time not alone. She carried the basket carefully, one hand on the handle, the other always touching her belly. The snow had stopped. The air was sharp but no longer cruel. As she walked to the car, her mother watching from the window, Emma thought about how little choices stepping outside, not turning away from a sound, can open doors you didn't know were locked. She didn't know yet what the vet would say. She didn't know if the cat would make it, or if she could raise a child on her own without falling apart. But she knew she wouldn't walk away, not from this life. Not from this creature, not from herself. And somewhere beneath the hum of the car engine and the quiet breathing of the cat beside her, Emma felt it. The beginning of a story neither of them had planned for. This story takes a turn you won't see coming, and it might just move you more than anything you've heard this week. What starts as a simple act of kindness unfolds into something far deeper, something that touches places we often try to hide. A broken woman, a frozen cat, and one moment that spirals into redemption neither of them expected. So stay with me until the end, and if your heart stirs even a little, leave a comment. Tell me if you felt it too. Because what happens next could happen to any of us. And it just might change how you see love, survival, and second chances. Emma thought the vet visit would be quick, get the cat stabilized, maybe hand her off to a shelter. But as she sat in the waiting room, her coat soaked from melting snow and her ankles swollen under her jeans, that plan started to dissolve. The cat didn't leave her gaze. It lay curled in the basket, its body too small, too still, but its eyes locked onto Emma's like it knew something she didn't. When Dr. Lewis called her name, she hesitated. Part of her wanted to run, not from the cat, from what it meant to care again. Dr. Lewis was kind, the kind that comes from years of watching people say goodbye to their animals. He didn't ask Emma many questions. He focused on the cat, speaking softly as he examined her with practiced hands. Female, he said, 6 months old, maybe younger, malnourished, paws are frostbitten, and she's got a nasty infection in her leg. She's been out there a while. Emma clenched her fists in her lap. She felt like she'd swallowed ice. The cat didn't react to the pain. She just kept staring. She has a chance, Dr. Lewis continued, glancing up, but it won't be easy. Antibiotics, warmth, a place to heal. It'll take time. Emma nodded, but her mind was somewhere else. 8 months into a pregnancy she hadn't planned for, left behind by someone who wasn't ready to be a father, and now staring at another life that might not make it. She whispered, "I don't know what I'm doing," more to herself than to anyone else. The vet heard her anyway. "None of us do," he said. "But this little one's alive because of you. That counts." Emma's instinct was to hand the cat over, to let the clinic take care of it. She had her hands full, her own future uncertain, her body tired, her emotions frayed. But when Dr. Lewis gently reached for the basket, something inside her jolted. "Wait," she said. He paused. Emma looked down at the tiny creature, still watching her like she was the only solid thing in the world. "I want to keep her, if she makes it." The words surprised even her. But once she said them, she couldn't unsay them. There was silence. Dr. Lewis nodded slowly, as if he knew this decision wasn't just about a cat. He handed Emma a small packet of medication, instructions, and his personal number in case anything got worse. "Keep her warm, feed her often. She need you." Emma looked down at the cat again, so fragile, so small, and realized she already needed it too. More than she had dared to admit. Back at home, Emma transformed the corner of her room into a safe space. A heated pad under an old comforter, bowls of soft food and water, a litter box she didn't yet know how to manage. Her mother watched from the doorway, skeptical but silent. That night, as the storm picked up again, the cat, now named Lily, let out a soft, weak purr for the first time. It was barely audible, but Emma heard it like a promise. She spent that night much like the one before, awake, alert, watching over a creature who didn't ask to be rescued. But something had changed. She wasn't just keeping the cat alive, she was anchoring herself to the present, to something she could nurture. Every time Lily stirred, Emma reached out, her fingers brushing fur instead of fear. She wasn't just waiting for her daughter anymore. She was preparing to be a mother. In the days that followed, Emma's routine revolved around two heartbeats, one inside her, and one fighting to stay alive beside her. She started talking again, not to people, but to Lily, telling stories, asking questions, laughing softly at things only a cat would hear. And Lily, still weak, began to respond, not with meows, but with presence. With slow blinks, with the smallest shift toward trust. There were setbacks, nights when Lily wouldn't eat, mornings when Emma cried in frustration, overwhelmed by diapers she hadn't bought yet and a cat she didn't know how to help. But with every hour that passed, the bond between them deepened, not dramatic, not sudden, just quiet and real. like snow falling when no one's watching. And in that stillness, something in Emma began to thaw. By the end of that week, the house didn't feel like a waiting room anymore, it felt like a nursery. Emma woke each morning to Lily curled near her belly, as if she knew what was growing inside. The cat's paws, still healing, twitched when she slept, but her breathing was stronger now, and so was her spirit. Emma's mother started leaving small things at their door: folded towels, bowls of chicken broth, a note with vet reminders. No words were exchanged, but something unspoken passed between generations, an understanding of what it means to care when you feel broken yourself. Emma started to take slow walks around the block with Lily bundled in a blanket against her chest, her belly balancing just above. Neighbors noticed, some smiled, others whispered. But one woman, a retired nurse named Carla, stopped her in the driveway one afternoon. "That cat," she said. "I saw her weeks ago behind the dumpster near the market. She was limping. I tried to catch her, but she vanished." Emma listened, stunned. Lily had been fighting long before they met. She'd survived more than the cold, she'd survived being unseen. Just like Emma. At her next prenatal checkup, Emma brought Lily in the carrier. The nurse raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Dr. Patel, her OBGYN, smiled as Emma explained. "She showed up right when I stopped believing in timing," Emma said. Dr. Patel nodded gently, then looked at the ultrasound screen. "Your baby's strong, heartbeat's perfect." Emma looked down at Lily, then at the monitor. Two fragile lives, both growing, both full of questions. And suddenly, she didn't feel alone in her body anymore. One night, a loud knock shattered the quiet. Emma opened the door to see her ex, Tyler, standing in the snow, holding a duffel bag. "I didn't know where else to go," he mumbled. She froze, her heart raced. Lily hissed from behind her. Emma stared at him, remembering the silence, the fear, the abandonment. Tyler stepped forward, eyes darting to her belly, then to the cat. "You took in a cat?" he said, almost mocking. Emma stood straighter. "Yes," she answered. And she stayed. They talked for hours that night about the baby, the past, and why love sometimes shows up in forms we don't expect. Tyler wasn't cruel, just lost. And for the first time, Emma saw that she didn't have to carry him, too. "I'm not asking to come back," he said. "I just want to help." She nodded slowly. "Then help from the outside," she replied. And when she closed the door behind him, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a choice, a beginning. A week later, Emma went into labor. It was early, too early. Panic surged, but her mother moved fast. The car ride was a blur. At the hospital, machines beeped, nurses rushed, and contractions hit like waves. Through it all, Emma clutched Lily's blanket, the one the cat had claimed as her own. She wasn't allowed to bring the cat, of course. But in her mind, Lily was right there, reminding her how to fight for life even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Baby Grace was born 6 hours later, tiny, fierce, and crying like the world owed her nothing. Emma held her to her chest, her heart pounding with disbelief. She was here, alive, against odds. The nurse wiped tears from Emma's cheek. "You're strong," she said. Emma smiled through exhaustion. "I had help," she whispered. And in her mind, she pictured Lily curled in her basket at home, watching the door, waiting. When Emma returned home 3 days later, Grace wrapped in layers of blankets, Lily was the first to greet her. She limped to the door and meowed, a sound stronger than before, she knew. Emma knelt down, holding Grace gently as Lily approached, sniffed, and then rubbed her face against the baby's tiny sock. Emma laughed, the kind of laugh that only comes after pain. In that moment, she knew they weren't just surviving anymore. They were healing, together. The small living room transformed into something sacred. Bottles on one shelf, hidden food on another. Sleepless nights filled with baby cries and soft purring. Emma sang lullabies with Lily curled nearby. And every time she held Grace, she felt the presence of both her girls, one by blood, one by fate. They were the family she hadn't planned but desperately needed. And somewhere between bottle feedings and litter scooping, Emma stopped dreading the future. She didn't have all the answers, but she had 2 reasons to keep going. 2 lives that depended on her and, in turn, gave her more than she ever thought possible. The woman who once stood alone in the snow was gone. In her place stood a mother, a protector, a survivor. Spring arrived quietly, with soft winds and the slow melting of old snow. By then, the house no longer smelled of old wood and winter air. It smelled like oatmeal baths, baby lotion, and fresh cat litter. The baby bassinet sat beside Emma's bed, and not far from it, Lily slept curled on a pillow that used to be Emma's favorite. Grace was 3 months old now, alert and full of sound. And every time she cooed or cried, Lily appeared without fail, sitting protectively at her side like a silent guardian who had chosen this family and never looked back. Emma's mornings began at sunrise, bottle in one hand, cat food in the other. She moved with purpose now, no longer unsure. Grace would blink up at her with wide, trusting eyes, and Lily would stretch on the windowsill, watching the world like she had once been outside of it. The bond between all three was unspoken but real. They breathed the same rhythm, they shared the same warmth. And Emma often caught herself smiling at the quiet moments, small, powerful reminders that they had made it through. The community began to notice the transformation. At the grocery store, people who once passed Emma by now stopped to admire Grace or ask how the cat was doing. "She looks good," Carla, the retired nurse, said one day, crouching to scratch behind Lily's ears. "So do you?" Emma nodded, her heart full but calm. The woman she used to be, hesitant, broken, afraid, still lived somewhere inside her, but she was quieter now. Emma had learned to live with her past instead of running from it. Lily became more than just a pet, she was a story. Emma started posting small updates online. A photo of Lily napping beside Grace, or the day Lily caught her first mouse and proudly dropped it at the foot of the crib like a gift. Comments poured in, messages from strangers, single moms, animal lovers, people who'd lost something or someone and saw their own heart in Emma's journey. One post went viral. Emma was stunned. But more than the attention, she was moved by the connection. People felt what she had lived. The shelter called one afternoon, asking if she'd share her story for an upcoming fundraiser. Emma hesitated, unsure if her private journey should become something public. But when she looked at Lily, lounging in the window with a sleepy eye on Grace, she said yes. At the event, she stood in front of a small crowd, holding a picture of the night she'd found Lily. Her voice shook. "I didn't rescue her," she said. "We rescued each other." The room went silent, then tears, then applause. After the fundraiser, Emma launched a small initiative, Second Chances, a simple name for a simple mission, helping young women, especially new mothers, foster animals in need. It wasn't a big nonprofit. It was just Emma, her mother, and a few friends, but it grew. And in each home, a pattern repeated. A woman with her own wounds would open her door to an abandoned pet. And together, they'd begin again. Emma didn't become rich or famous, but every few weeks, someone would knock on her door, a neighbor with a kitten found behind a trash bin, a friend with a dog who'd been left behind. And Emma always found a way to help, not because she had all the answers, but because she knew what it meant to have no one. And then, suddenly, to have everything. Grace grew, Lily aged, their bond only deepened. Emma's mother, once cautious and quiet, became the heart of their little team, knitting blankets, organizing supply drives, and telling anyone who'd listen about the day my daughter brought home a half-frozen cat and changed everything. It was true. That moment had cracked something wide open. Not just in Emma but in all of them. Years passed. Grace learned to walk holding onto Lily's tail. And Lily, ever patient, never once scratched. On the first day of kindergarten, Grace wore a backpack with a stitched paw print and told her teacher, "My cat saved my mom." Emma cried on the drive home. Not out of sadness, but because it was true. In all the ways that mattered, Lily had saved her. Emma would sometimes sit by the window with her tea, watching Grace play in the yard and Lily sunbathe nearby. And she'd think back to that night in the snow when she stepped outside just to breathe, and heard a sound that changed her life. A sound that pulled her from the edge, a cry for help that, in answering, allowed her to heal. Because she didn't just save a cat. She didn't just become a mother, she became whole. And Lily wasn't just a rescue, she was a mirror. A reminder that even the most fragile things can be fierce. And that sometimes, what we think we're saving, ends up saving us right back.